Well, thanks so much for joining us here today. I know lives can get really busy, and I never take for granted when you choose to spend your valuable time here with us. And because of that, I always make sure to deliver. And today you are in for a treat. We're going to be interviewing Dr. Pamela Ellis and talking about negotiables in the college admission process. What you can control and what you don't. It can be a nerve-wracking process. So stay tuned if this is something that is relevant in your life. And welcome, Dr. Ellis. It's so great to have you here.
Cindy, it is so great to see you and to be here. So thank you so much. And I am just excited to be on your show.
Oh, I am too. And obviously the stars are light. It is a gorgeous day out there. I see the trees are turning color and all of the stars are lining up with you coming on the show here. And for those of you who may not know her, Dr. Pamela Ellis, she's known as the education doctor. And that's because she's award-winning educator. She is a best-selling author of What to Know Before They Go. And her mission is to guide both students and parents through what can really be a pretty complex college preparation process and help ensure that they get successful and an affordable education journey, which is something we all want. And, with over
Yeah.
500 campus visits and I think like somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 family success stories under her belt, she's helped countless parents and students avoid overpaying. So digging in, Pamela, I know like I'm dating
Yeah.
myself here, but back when I applied for
Mhm.
university, they didn't have even, you didn't see all these orientations and all of these processes. And I was the first in our
Yeah.
extended family to ever, go to
Yeah.
post-secondary to university. So there was no help. And I had to sort of
Yeah.
navigate the process on a prayer and a wing. How did you get started helping families, navigate the college admission process? What was your kickstart to this?
Oh my goodness. Cindy, I love that question. And I want to dive right in to answer it. Before I do, though, I want to just say to your guests just how lucky they are to have you as a host.
Oh, thanks.
I've listened to your shows and just the way you give in terms of really, getting to know your guests and really having authentic shows and just bringing your knowledge and showing how negotiation just kind of is a
Wow.
thread throughout our lives in so many ways. And so before we dive in, I just want to say to your guests that if they haven't already, to be sure to go out and give you a 5-star review because you're amazing.
Wow.
So thank you
Oh
for
my
that.
gosh. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're going to get me all teared up here. That was
Oh,
very
yeah.
generous. So I appreciate that. And I try for that.
Absolutely.
So thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Absolutely. But my story, actually is similar to yours in that I am first generation college and
Yeah.
also first generation high school.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
parents, they finished 8th and 10th grade, and my mom actually was a sharecropper. And
Yeah.
so when it came to even thinking about college, they really didn't know how to help me with that process. And I was all over the map.
Yeah.
So I just
I hear
really,
you.
I applied everywhere because it was kind of like where you just throw in and hope something sticks on the wall. And the thing that was really driving me was just the fact that, in school, I had been told that I wouldn't amount to anything by my fifth
Yeah.
grade teacher. And I really wanted to prove her wrong.
I
I
love
really
that.
did. And I wanted to show that I really was going to amount to something. And so I just applied by hand to all these colleges. And, when I finally got admitted, my mom was like, oh my goodness, I don't know about this. Why don't you just stay home and you
Yeah.
could work and, get a car, those kinds of things. And she really wanted me to be close to home because she just didn't know what the experience would be
Yeah.
like for me
Of
to go
course.
away.
Yeah.
And we got on a Greyhound bus all the way out from Memphis, Tennessee,
Yeah.
out to California.
Wow. That's a hike.
Yes, yes. And when we got there, she gave me $70 for the whole school year.
Oh
And
my God.
Cindy, I thought this was great money. I was
Yeah.
excited for that $70
I hear you.
until I went to the bookstore the next day and my books were $350 for the first
Oh,
quarter. So
I
I really had no idea of what
yeah.
I was getting into, but I just knew that I couldn't call home to ask for more.
Yeah.
And so I had to make it work, and to do that within the 4 years I was there. And that's what happened. But when you fast forward that, when I became a mom, oh my goodness, I just became obsessed with schooling and trying to figure out, how do I help my kids through
Yeah.
K-12? Because,
Yeah.
I wanted to do better. And I think
Yeah.
all of us as parents want that. We want more for our kids than we
Yeah.
had ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's really what drove me into the work that I do today. I've always had a heart for education, and some parents, asked me if I would help them with their kids on their
Yeah.
journey, because they saw the work that I was doing with my own children.
Yeah.
And by then I had finished my doctorate work. And so they knew I worked in education doing
Yeah.
something. And plus they saw the results with my own children. And I was like, you know something? I can help you. And I
Yeah.
put together a program based on my dissertation work. And my work is around high school to college transition. And so what
Yeah.
supports students with navigating through high school and going on to thrive in college.
Well,
And
that's
with
pretty
that,
brilliant. Yeah.
that's really how my business got started.
Yeah. Oh, I love
Yep.
that. And talk about dedication. I mean, the fact that I didn't realize your dissertation was on that. That just kicks it up.
Yeah.
And I knew I liked
Yeah.
you. Like, talk about similar paths. Because again, I don't know
Yeah.
that my parents ever graduated grade 8, to be honest. I mean, you could
Yeah.
never get a straight answer about it. But having
Hmm.
said that, my dad,
Yeah.
street smart, probably one of the
Yeah.
smartest men I ever knew. And my mom, intuition, right? And I
Uh-huh.
also just want to put a pin in for our listeners out there. If any of you are teachers or educators,
Yeah.
recognize the impact that you can have on children when I so many times I hear that story about somebody being told that they can't write or they're not great at music and they go on to achieve incredible thing, or that you're not smart enough or you're not going to amount to anything. And I mean, in some ways maybe they do us a favor because it makes us want to strive harder, but for goodness sake, don't be judging limitations on somebody's ability to do good in the world. Now,
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
to
And
give
it,
a shout out though, Pamela, because in the past 5 years, like, it was shocking. I think 95% of your students have been admitted to their top college choice. Like,
yep.
what is the secret to that level of success? So first, congrats,
Yeah,
kudos.
thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And the results has been 95% admitted to their top choice colleges. And the other piece of that is the average scholarship is 75,000. And so that's really been done through our approach in how we guide students in choosing the right colleges for them. And we have our own fit factors that are part of that. And we, start the whole process with the student. And so we're not just looking at what are the brand name colleges
Yeah,
or what are the colleges in their local area,
yeah,
but it's about what's a good fit for you.
yeah,
And I think that really, kind of, gives the teen that much more confidence in
yeah.
terms of, as we're guiding them through the process, because it's not about anyone but them. It's just all
That's
about
beautiful.
them and what's going to be a place where they can thrive. And
Yeah,
I always share with them at the outset that there are dozens of colleges that are a great fit for you,
yeah.
a lot of them. And so that's really what I think is the secret sauce in our
That's
work,
so
because
important.
yeah, we're not trying to sell them on going anywhere,
Yeah,
and we have, certainly visited enough colleges that we know that there
yeah,
are tons of them out there that are great for them.
yeah,
And it's just opening their eyes to that. And then, really talking about them, what it is
yeah,
they want, and supporting some of that life skill development earlier on for those
yeah.
skills that they'll be using in college, like self-advocacy, self-awareness, which
Yeah.
is so huge.
Yes.
And just knowing that, you can do things that you enjoy,
Yeah.
you don't have to do
Yeah.
anything just for the sake of doing it or for the
Yeah.
sake of college, because that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
We want you to live out your values and live out loud with it,
Yeah. I like
And
that.
so that's
Yeah.
that's what we do, and that's the secret sauce.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's funny as you were saying that, because it's not even just the confidence about like
Yeah.
going through that high school experience, being confident that
Mhm.
there's something for you. but then you can't help but succeed when you get to a place that better suits you rather than being in a,
Right.
you know, a
Yeah,
round peg in a square hole or whatever. And I want to circle
exactly.
back when you'd said about those fit factors. Like, what are some of those, just to give an idea?
Yeah,
Like, what are some of the
actually,
kinds of
yeah.
things? Because it can be
Mhm.
overwhelming. So, any tips
It
you've got on
can be.
negotiating the tricky path of choosing the right one in the first place?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The 5 factors are academic, social,
Mhm.
financial, vocational, and cultural.
Yeah. Uh,
So, academic is about what you want to learn and how you learn best.
yeah.
The social factor is ways that you make friends. How do you make friends and how easily do you make friends? The third factor is about just how can college be affordable for your family?
Yeah.
And maybe that's no loans, maybe that's getting merit scholarships, maybe it's being able to access financial aid. And then the fourth factor of vocational is what you're interested in doing after college. Sometimes students know, sometimes they don't. And that's
Yeah.
completely okay because that would be part of, that matching if
Yeah.
they don't know what they want to do after college.
Yeah.
And then the fifth factor is cultural. So how might you be different than the
Yeah.
majority of students on that campus?
Yeah.
Because wherever you go, you want it to be a place where you feel celebrated and not
Yes.
tolerated.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And for our listeners, I want to really put a pin in that because that is such a simple structure. And yet, I've got to
Mhm.
say, Pamela, that is the first time I've ever heard it framed that way about those 5 factors. And what
Yeah,
a profound difference it makes. Like when you'd said academic, I was
yeah.
just thinking, playing back with my kids, my daughter
Mhm.
had had open heart surgery. So things tended to be
Yeah,
delayed. And she was on one of
yeah.
those individual education plans. And I was furious that it was clear as she went through. They called us in for a meeting one time. And when I started
Mhm.
talking about university, it was obvious that their expectation was there was no way she was going that path, right? And
Oh.
it was about
Mhm.
being, and she succeeded. She ended up getting a,
Yeah,
all paid scholarship to her top choice by
yeah.
pushing through. But and
Uh-huh.
also that social piece, right? Because I think, my dad, we had no connections, but I do remember him bringing some summer student
Yeah.
home from his factory one evening who had gone to
Uh-huh.
university. That's the only experience my dad had ever had. And having him talk about the different, this one is just academic. This one is
Yeah.
academic, but also has a great social life. And all of a sudden the lights went off for me. I'm like, oh, okay. And cultural, we don't hear people talk about that. And today,
We
if
don't.
ever there was a time to start raising our
Yeah,
awareness about that, like, my gosh.
yeah,
Now, tell us
yeah,
about, it sounds like you've got great simple models to follow, which I love. Like,
yeah.
what
Mhm.
is your calm model? Because mindset, I always say, is
Yes.
one of our most important
Yeah.
negotiations. And I love that your
Mhm.
calm model is about mindset, right? That college
It is.
accelerated leadership mindset. Yeah, tell us about that.
It is, and it's intentionally called Keep Calm because there's so much stress in the
Yeah,
college admissions process, and we're not about, agitating that at all.
yeah,
It's about doing things in an intentional way.
yeah.
And with CALM, as you stated, it stands for College and Accelerated Leadership Methodology.
Nice.
And it's a simple framework for what we focus on in terms of our work. And so the first is discover, and that's discovering who you are
Mm,
and what your interests are. The second is around developing the right college list. And third is taking action. And so, with that, when you think about those three
yeah,
aspects of the framework, there are different things that you're doing on at each grade level.
yeah,
And I think that's sometimes where the stress comes in,
yeah.
and parents are often having some tension with negotiating with their kids around this because they're thinking that their kids should be looking at colleges in ninth grade. And it's
Yeah,
like, no,
yeah,
ninth grade is much more about that discovery phase.
yeah,
And we're not even into looking at colleges, but there's certain actions they can take, to support that phase. And so if you understand it in that way, I think that takes away some of the tension that
yeah,
happens at home. And parents oftentimes, moms especially feeling like they're nagging them all the
yeah.
time about college. And it's just like,
It's
it's
true.
probably just a little bit misplaced.
Yeah,
And I know a lot of that comes from that nervousness or feeling like, they're not going to get in,
yeah,
or, it's going to be so expensive.
yeah,
And those kinds of myths really just kind of add to the stress.
Yeah. Oh, and so important. I just love that you did
Mhm.
that first step about who you are. We don't do
Yeah,
that enough in our society. And at that age and
we don't.
stage, they are so
Yeah.
affected by everybody else, who they think they need to be for everyone else, as
Yes.
opposed to really
Yes.
discovering at their core who they are. Who do I want to show up
Yeah.
as? What do I want?
Yeah.
What words would I want people to use to describe me, and things. I think
Yeah.
it's great. And I'd love
Yeah.
you to dig in more when you talk about negotiating with your kids, because most
Yeah.
parents don't think about it that way, and I do, as you know.
Oh,
Uh,
I do too, in a major way, because, so much of the process is about that negotiation. And that's what I think exacerbates the stress,
yeah,
because we are trying to get our kids to do what we think they should be doing
yeah,
in order to move forward.
yeah,
They, on the other hand, are thinking, I'm doing what I'm doing. Why do I need to do anything more?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so there's that battle, there's that tension,
Yeah,
and a lot of tension at home. And I'll be frank with saying, Cindy, that's why a lot of families come to us,
I
because
bet.
as that middle person, that third party, if you will,
Yeah,
kids are going to hear things differently
absolutely.
from us than they will, mom and dad. And
Yeah,
so mom and dad may doing a lot of negotiating, but when we're working with them, it's about, hey, read that aloud for me. And they don't even say anything about it. They just read it aloud. But if you ask them that as a parent, it's like,
yeah,
why do you want me to do that?
yeah.
And it's kind of a little bit of a battle. And so I think it's critical. And the thing about it is, it's the same with my own kids. They
Yes.
don't listen to me.
Right, it's
They
funny,
don't
our
listen to me.
perspective of our parents. I mean, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, if I had $1 for every time I'd say it to my dad, "Oh, yeah, I know that was how things were in your day, but things
Yeah,
have changed," and he used to just smile and go, "Just wait. Remember you said that?
yeah.
Just wait." And then I grow up, have my own kids, and I'm like,
Yeah,
"Oh my God."
exactly. Exactly. Because we all know college from our own experiences,
Yeah,
if we've gone to college. And so that's what we're, really laying and projecting onto our children.
yeah, yeah,
And the landscape has changed a great deal,
yeah,
even in the last 4 years.
yeah,
And so to think that it's going to be like it was then,
yeah,
or it's going to be like all of the myths and gossip that you're
yeah,
hearing, is misplaced. And it
yeah.
just means that we then nag our kids about the wrong thing.
In many areas. I am guilty as
Yes.
charged. Now,
Yes.
do you have any tips for, like, how to prepare our kids for college? Because as you're saying that, it's sort of like the landscape really has changed
Yeah.
on so many levels. So what are some things
Yeah.
that parents can do to help prepare their kids for that big jump?
Focusing on what they enjoy and
Mm,
discovering what that is. So many times, even, in the younger grades, when kids think about the college process, they think about, what is it that I need to do to get in? What
yeah,
is it that the admissions officers want to see, or what is it that they want to read?
yeah,
And they're not thinking about what it is about them.
yeah,
And so just nurturing that early on. And
yeah.
it could be through, giving them a few assessments to take to help them with that language, and also thinking about if they agree with it or not, that, what the assessment says about their personality or their
Smart.
learning style or what have you. And the other thing is allowing exploration. And that, I think, is really important, because so many times we do this unintentionally, but we may hold our kids back
Yes.
from really exploring.
Yeah,
I know my own mom did that in ways that she just didn't know. My
yeah,
mother was part of the greatest generation. And she lived through the depression, and the things that she saw meant that,
yeah,
she oftentimes would be like, oh, you're doing what? You want to do what? You want to, spend the night where? You want to go to a camp away for a week? And the
yeah.
thing about it is, even though that was years ago, it's still happening
Of course.
today.
Yeah,
I'll hear parents say, oh, I don't know if my kid can go away to college. They
yeah,
need to go local. Spending a week at a camp in the summer for my ninth grader, no way,
Yeah.
but it's just like, no, let them do that, because then it helps them to learn how to make friends
Yeah.
and develop their social skills and
Yeah.
social network as well. So many times, especially in the last few years, our kids are spending so much more time online
Yeah.
and at home. And so when it comes to knowing how to engage in real life, they don't have those
Yeah.
skills readily available.
Yeah.
And so giving them that opportunity to just explore a summer program, for a
Yeah.
week that's in another state, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, that may be a plane ride
Yeah.
away, it's okay. Let them do
Yeah.
that. And boy, you're going to see a new kid come back
Yeah.
home.
And
Yeah.
exploring, it ties back, I think, to what you were saying earlier about who you are. It allows, I
Yeah,
mean,
it
let's face
does.
it, as we're growing up, we try on different versions of ourselves, right? Oh, let me kind of,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
consciously or unconsciously, it's like, oh, I'm going to try and be
Yeah.
this. Ooh, that feels kind of, that's not me, but this feels good, right? So what a great way to
Yeah.
do.
And the thing that we always know that's true about college is that's the place where kids do kind of become someone else
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. And I think sometimes that's because they haven't had an opportunity to do that when
Yeah.
they're at home. And this is still in line with that, but I've had some students that I've worked with that didn't come out in terms of their orientation and identity
Yeah.
until senior year when they're working on their applications. And the
Absolutely.
decision is that they're going to do that when they get to college,
Yeah.
but they don't feel like they can really be themselves in
Yeah.
high school.
Yeah.
And so I really, just want kids to be able to be themselves even then, because then when they're at home in high school,
Yeah.
they have that
Yeah.
supportive network that can
Yeah.
embrace them and really help them with navigating through those identity
Yeah. Yeah.
issues that they may have during that time.
Oh, so important. I love that you do that. My gosh, that's beautiful. And I was chuckling at one point, not at what you were saying, but I was thinking about, because we do change as we go to university. We're taught to
We
question
do.
things in ways that we haven't before. And I remember
Yep.
my dad, every time I'd come home, he'd sort of knock me down a few pegs saying, oh, don't give me your pseudo, what did he call it? Pseudo
Yeah.
intellectual babble or whatever. Right. And so
Yeah.
get me off my high horse when I thought I was
Yeah.
just so smart and academic. So no, I want to circle back to the money piece, because when you had said, and I
Yeah.
had read it somewhere and thought I had it wrong, because I know like money
Uh-huh.
is a huge inhibitor in this journey, and your
Yeah.
students receive an average of $75,000 in scholarships.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that?
Oh, it comes from matching on
Yeah, okay.
fit,
Wow.
because one of the factors is the financial fit.
Yeah,
And the thing about it is that what we've seen in all these years, and even within that 75,000 average, is all from the colleges.
yeah. Wow, that's wild.
And the thing about it is colleges also wanted to be affordable.
Yeah,
And they have a budget for supporting students,
yeah,
regardless of the college. They have a budget for it, and the thing about it is that the majority of the families that we're working with don't qualify for need-based aid.
yeah,
And there's teens are still able to access those kinds of scholarships. And they're not all straight A students.
yeah.
They have a variety of needs and interests. And so it's all within those fit factors.
Wow. Well, that is, and also you're being very humble. That is a testament to the work that you do, that preparation for,
Yes.
like, I'm a big believer,
Yeah,
preparation is a big part of any negotiation. It sounds like
it
you really
is.
have that preparation piece nailed down. Now, you mentioned culture as a factor, and I'd be remiss if I didn't
Mhm.
circle back to it, particularly in
Yeah,
today's sort of climate.
yeah.
What role does race play in that sort of, if at all, in that
Mhm.
college prep? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm assuming it has to in today's environment.
Well, it has with the new Supreme Court decision that came about. And so, one of the things that I have seen in this past year is that for a number of our Black and African American students,
Yep.
many of them have chosen to apply to HBCUs.
Yeah.
and their numbers have increased over the years in a way that wasn't the case pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Or in some cases
Interesting.
pre-Supreme Court decision.
Yeah.
And so that is one way for sure. And then the colleges have released that, for some of the universities, yes, they have seen a drop off in terms of admissions. And they've also, like the percentage of students who are enrolled or admitted to the college, and also the numbers of students of color actually applying. So I think still there's more to learn from the effects of the decision, because some of the results may be conflated in terms of students just not even applying. And so just kind of having a sense for what those true percentages are.
Yeah.
And I think too that there are other cultural factors that we don't consider. Yes, race is one of them, but there's also orientation. So
Absolutely.
if you are non-binary or, identify that way, regional as well as economic that we don't think about. One of my students was a young man who was attending a charter school in South Carolina. So right away, he's from a small town and looking at colleges in the Northeast. So right away, how is he going to find community in those schools that are really like a world away from him, And then for his mom, who I'm encouraging to go to, family weekend, how will she also find community among other parents of students there, So it's, those kinds of things in terms of thinking about the cultural difference.
Well, it gives me hope that you are out there, frankly, and people like you making a difference. Because I mean, historically, I hate to think how much talent never got the chance to sort of go through the process, get that right fit, and make the kind of contributions to the world that they're capable of making, right? So, and I worry in some ways, it's like one step forward, and we're in an odd time in history where we're at risk of taking a big steps backwards on so many fronts that so thank you for what you do. And I was wondering, because your book, I love the title, by the way, but what's one of the most sort of surprising or shocking, things that you discovered while researching your book?
Ooh.
Anything stand out at you as being like, whoa, either an insight that you got yourself or in the research?
I'm trying to think. I haven't gotten that question before. And the thing about the book is I was really living it as I was writing it. And so I've always worked with students across the grades. So we work with students 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And by the time I had written the book, I had, worked with students from middle school who, then worked with me in high school all the way through. And so I had gone through all of those experiences and also had written the curriculum for what we were doing, because my vision has always been that we would have greater impact. And that meant, hiring others on the team who would also be able to work with families using our framework. And so I didn't see it so much as research in that regard as I did, really here is what we're doing each and every day. And how do I impart that in a way that a busy parent who is always on the go, working a career as well as has home responsibilities, how does she know what to do in October for her 9th grader? It shouldn't be a puzzle, or she's spending all her time online at night trying to look up information. It's right there. And then she could pick up that same book when they're in 10th grade to see what they need to do in, August. So that's kind of how I was thinking about the book, because that's kind of how we work with families. And it's month by month. in terms of what makes sense for that
Yeah.
student where they are.
Yeah. And when do you typically suggest, like, I love that you've got this sort of long frame, like you're with them through the process, right? Like not just,
Yeah,
I think most people wait until the end and then it's this mad
they do.
scramble to get the application done and properly. When do you recommend people typically reach out to yourself?
Yeah, ideally it would be 10th grade.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, that would be the ideal time.
Yeah.
And I say that because in 10th grade, they're not just really so focused on the process just yet.
Yeah.
And there's so much discovery,
Yeah.
left
Yeah.
for, thinking about who they are, what their
Yeah.
interests are, and really hitting the ground running when they're
Yeah.
in junior year in a confident, less harried way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I
Mhm.
love that. And where can
Yeah.
people learn more about you, Dr. Ellis?
Oh my goodness, I would love to share that. And I have something fantastic just for your listeners.
Okay.
And what that is the College Confidence Blueprint. And it's something that they won't find anywhere else
Yeah.
online. And what it is it's a step-by-step guide so that as moms are, planning and thinking about how best to support their teen on their journey, it really guides them with what makes sense when.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
also it includes a communication guide as well, because
Wow.
like I said before, a lot of it is that tension and how do I talk to my teen?
Yes.
How do I talk to them and how do I
Yes.
get them to open up, And so they can access that tool by messaging me on IG or LinkedIn at Dr. Pamela Ellis. So DrPamelaEllis. And all they have to message me is Blueprint 25, and I'll send it to them personally.
Well, that's a fabulous gift. And for our listeners,
Yeah.
take advantage. I mean, often, and don't worry if you're driving right now or you're busy, that's great. And we love that you joined us. I'll make sure to have it in the show notes and make a point of coming back to grab it in the show notes if you can't take that down now. And take Dr. Ellis up on the offer because, not a lot. They say that no such thing as a free lunch. Well, here you're being offered more than a free lunch. And the work speaks for itself. 95% of her students get their top college of choice, and the average is $75,000 in scholarship. I mean, it
Yeah.
blew me away when I saw your numbers. I'm like, I have got to get Pamela on this show to be sharing these secrets with our audience. And so I normally like to ask, as we sort of wind up here, although I could go on
Mhm.
forever with you, Pamela,
Yeah.
what's one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've ever had in your life? Doesn't have to be about this issue, just one of those aha
Yeah.
moments where you think differently about things.
I think the aha moment for me was how much my identity shaped my behavior. And I
Mhm.
think that came about when I was divorced,
Yeah.
because so much of my identity beforehand had been as a wife.
Yeah.
And when I no longer had that, it was almost like I was lost
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
sense. But really reframing how I saw myself helped me to be able to pick up the pieces and move forward and
Yeah.
still know that I am able to achieve all the things that I want to achieve, even if I don't have a partner with me.
Yeah. Oh, that is such a great answer on so many levels. First, thank you for being transparent and sharing your
Yeah,
sort of personal experience. But as you're saying that, I was thinking as well, circling back to that, who we are, our sense of
yeah,
identity drives so much of that.
mhm,
And also how appropriate is we're talking about college admissions, because I think for a lot of parents and women tend to be more
mhm,
affected by this. I
yeah,
find that that's it. They totally lose their identity when the kids go away to
yeah,
school. It's like, who am I
yeah,
anymore? Right. I've been a
right,
mother for the last however long. And
yeah.
where what I am I? So thank you for sharing that. I think that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing all these gems. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here, Pamela, and really
Thank
appreciate
you,
you sharing.
Cindy. I enjoyed it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and for our listeners, I have no doubt there was so much value here. I mean, Dr. Ellis just really delivered a lot of value in a short time. Again, I encourage you to look her up, take her up on her offer as well. We'll make sure to have all of that info for our show notes. And as always, give the gift of sharing. Anybody that you know who's going through this journey. So, I mean, basically anybody who has kids or is thinking of having kids, share this information. You know, don't wait until it's crisis time. You hear how early, like grade 10 is that optimal time to start at least thinking about this and maybe reach out to Pamela and start getting more targeted. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done that already. And before we sign off, just a few ways that we can work together if you're looking to up-level your negotiation skills. Because let's face it, all of life is a negotiation. I've got everything from online to group to my signature mastermind one-on-one that'll help you better leverage your innate power. And yes, you have it to be able to get more of the life that you deserve. If that sounds interesting, check it out at artoffemininenegotiation.com. And for heaven's sakes, if you haven't grabbed my book of the same name yet, please do The Art of Feminine Negotiation. It is not just about being in the boardroom, but it is about negotiating with your kids, as we talked about here today, with your intimate partner, and all of those areas, negotiating your own mindset. And that is a wrap for this episode. Until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so you can stop missing out and you can start getting more of what you want and deserve from the boardroom to the bedroom. Until next time, take care.